The Silent Guardian by Branson, Saalinger. The world exploded in green fire. Beams danced across the barricade against the strange xeno-architecture, carving swaths of men into glowing cinders. Private Baros, his heart hammering in his chest, fumbled with the detonator wires. Sweat blurred his vision, making the green glow pulse sickeningly. With a desperate grunt, he slammed the plunger home. Fire and deafening sound consumed him. Emperor, protect. His last thought dissolved into darkness. The world had erupted into a maelstrom of green flame. When Private Baros blinked himself awake, the inferno had been replaced with an unsettling quiet. Glowing panels pulsed within the oppressive blackness, their eerie illumination doing little to pierce the suffocating silence. Panic clawed at his throat, his breath echoing hollowly in the sound-absorbing rock. "Sergeant," he croaked, his voice rasping. Sergeant Campos loomed above, his weathered face grim under the red glow of his litho stick. The faint hiss, the only sound besides their ragged breaths. "Seems the Emperor ain't finished with us quite yet, maggot," he rumbled, his voice gruff, yet a welcome anchor in the unsettling silence. Baros patted around, realizing his lasgun was missing, vaporized alongside their barricade during the detonation. His pistol felt cold and inadequate in his clammy hand. Campos fiddled with his own lasgun, its familiar hum absent. "Torch won't light," he muttered, smacking it against the rock in frustration. "Whatever this place is, it don't want us seeing a damn thing." Baros pushed himself up, leaning against the smooth, cold rock. As he moved, he realized another unnerving truth. No sound escaped their movements. It was swallowed by the eerie quietude. This wasn't just darkness. It was an overwhelming, all-encompassing silence, pressing down on them like a physical weight. Baros trailed behind Campos, the oppressive silence amplifying the rhythmic scrape of their boots against the unknown rock floor. The hallway seemed to stretch endlessly, devoid of features except for the eerie glowing inscriptions that writhed across the walls, alien symbols mocking their understanding. They were adrift in a sea of black and green, with no compass and no shore in sight. "Sergeant," Baros' voice barely rose above a whisper, "do you think we'll ever see Terra again?" His question hung heavy in the air, fragile in the face of their grim reality. Campos stopped, his silhouette stark against the pulsating wall. He turned, face hidden in shadows, only the red ember of his litho stick glowing like a malevolent eye. "No, Baros," he said, his voice a low rumble. "We're not coming back. But we ain't going down without a fight." With a flick of his wrist, the litho clattered to the ground. The last plume of smoke vanishing into the oppressive silence. In the dim red glow, Baros saw the steely glint of determination in Campos' eyes, a spark of defiance against the encroaching darkness. A low tremor thrummed through the floor, vibrating up Baros' boots and sending goosebumps prickling across his skin. A grating grind echoed in the cavernous hall, the sound of rock scraping against rock, growing louder with each agonizing second. Then, a rhythmic tapping joined the symphony of unease, metallic clicks that hammered against their eardrums and gnawed at their nerves. "Baros," Campos barked, his voice tight with urgency. "Behind the pillar, now." He shoved Baros towards the nearest column, his own form disappearing into the shadows of another. The tapping sound intensified, a relentless drumbeat that pulsed in Baros' skull, threatening to shatter his sanity. He squeezed behind the pillar, heart pounding against his ribs, and he peered around the cold stone. There, bathed in the sickly green glow emanating from the walls, stood a monstrosity beyond imagination. A colossal head, pulsing with an ethereal green light, rested on a writhing mass of segmented plates, each linked to the next by countless twitching prolegs. The sight stole the breath from his lungs, plunging Baros into a chilling silence far more terrifying than the cacophony that had preceded. The creature tilted its pulsating head, its single green eye seeming to bore into their souls. And then, with agonizing slowness, it lurched forward, metallic plates grinding against the stone. "Frack!" Campos roared, unleashing a torrent of red laser fire. The beams bathed the hallway in an angry glow, washing over the monstrosity, but to no avail. Each shot seemed to merely annoy it, leaving sizzling scorch marks on its hide. One beam, however, found the mark, slamming into the green orb with a sickening crack. The orb flickered, dimmed, and then faded to nothing. The creature froze, prolegs twitching uselessly, before it collapsed with a deafening thud that echoed through the cavernous hall. Baros, hands slick with sweat, fumbled towards the fallen orb, his laspistol aimed shakily. Is it dead?" he said, his voice barely audible over his ragged breathing. Campos, with a grim face, stomped on the orb with his boot. A metallic clang resonated, but the orb remained inert. Relief washed over Baros, momentary and sweet. "You see, Baros?" Campos grunted, a hint of triumph in his gruff voice. "We can take 'em down, one by one." Even as he spoke, the green orb flickered back to life, pulsing with an even more malevolent intensity. The creature's head rose, the metallic plates grinding as it turned, its single eye locking onto Campos' back. Panic seized Baros. The thing wasn't dead. It was just toying with them. Without a second thought, Baros turned and ran. His scream echoed down the endless hallway. He had to get out of there. He had to survive. The sounds of Campos screaming were dampened only by the fall of his own heavy boots. Baros' lungs howled in protest, each raspy gasp a desperate plea for oxygen. His boots pounded a relentless rhythm against the cold metal floor, echoing down the seemingly endless hallway. But then, amidst the oppressive silence, something shifted. A flicker of movement caught his eye. An alcove where there had been none before, yawning open like a hungry maw in the rock face. Baros skidded to a halt, chest heaving, mind warring between blind flight and hesitant exploration. This new path, it hadn't existed before, had it? Yet the endless hallway mocked him with its suffocating familiarity, every turn promising only more of the same chilling unknown. As if sensing his indecision, the alcove pulsed faintly, an ethereal invitation whispered on the wind. It felt tempting, almost beseeching, and yet laced with an undercurrent of malevolent intent. With a shuddering breath, Baros braced himself against the wall, his trembling hand offering little support. The metallic tang of blood filled his mouth, a souvenir from a recent scrape. He ignored the throbbing pain and forced his gaze towards the opening of the alcove. Cold, unblinking eyes seemed to gleam from within, belonging to statues that lined the walls. Had they always been there? Or were they, too, shifting along with the hallway's whim, silent observers to his terror? A faint, metallic chiming reached his ears. Tink, tink, tink. Barely audible at first, then growing louder with each frantic, pounding heartbeat. Every time Baros whipped his head around, seeking the source, he found only the mocking emptiness of the hallway. Yet the sound persisted, a chilling counterpoint to the pounding in his chest. A crushing weight settled over him, not from exhaustion, but from a deeper, more primal fear. It wasn't just the monster descending. It was the suffocating realization that he was trapped, utterly alone, with nowhere to run and no hope for survival. Baros looked up at the creature, its single eye boring down into him with a judgmental stare. Was this his punishment for failing his orders? For doubting his faith? In that moment, a strange calm washed over him. "Emperor, forgive me," he whispered. Not for his actions, but for his weakness. With a newfound resolve, Baros raised the pistol, not to his chin, but aiming it at the creature's pulsing orb. It was a futile gesture. He knew that. But it was also a defiance against the crushing despair. He pulled the trigger, the sound echoing in the vast emptiness around him. For a brief moment, he felt a flicker of satisfaction, a tiny ember of resistance against the encroaching darkness. Then, nothingness.